Hello, hello. Today's a fantastic day to inspire and potentially scare some lives. I am Jaime Raygoza, your host, and welcome to the Finding the Unicorn in You podcast. It is spooky season, and to honor my favorite holiday, we are introducing the masked unicorn. Join me as we continue on our weekly journey to help you find and connect with your inner unicorn. But be vigilant, as this month we will seek out to discover the difference between a masked unicorn and a true unicorn. Now, without further ado, I hope you enjoy this week's show. So today's activity is going to require arts and crafts. So the things you're going to need is going to be a pair of scissors, a pen or pencil, 2 to 3 pieces of paper, and a jar. Cut the paper into small slips, enough for you to be able to write 1 or 2 sentences in each slip, but still big enough where you can fold it in half or into thirds. Divide the slips into 3 piles. On one of the piles, I want you to write positive affirmations about yourself, things that you're grateful for yourself, that you are proud of yourself. So, I am proud. I am smart. I am capable of doing things. Whatever it may be, but add those things in there. Once you finish writing all those slips, fold them up and place them inside the jar. In the second pile, write an activity that's going to make you happy. So whether it be reading a book, going out to go get iced coffee, doing your nails, your hair, getting a pedicure, whatever it may be. And go ahead and write them in the slip, fold them up, and put them in the jar. The last pile, I want you to put people's names that make you feel happy. By you interacting with them, they bring you joy. Write all of their names down in these slips, fold them up, and put them in the jar. I really want you to shake that jar. Whenever you're feeling bad, stressed, or anxious, I want you to take a slip out of that jar. If you take out a slip with an affirmation, I want you to go in front of a mirror, read it out loud to yourself, and tell yourself, I am smart, I am positive, or whatever that slip says, and say it to yourself 3 or 4 times until you actually start believing it. Remind yourself why you value so much. If it's a action, I want you to try to do the action that week. Going to do your nails, going to the movies, reading a book, whatever makes you happy. If it's a person, I would like you to do is call that person. Text them. Somehow get in touch with them so that they can get you out of that funk that you're feeling. This is called the positive jar. I really challenge you to do this. It helps tremendously. Sounds very cheesy, but it will help. Hope you enjoyed this week's activity. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy this week's show. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. Today I have a very special guest. I met her through Riverside Pride. She was one of the individuals that were planning it and helped it run fantastically during the event. You probably would have noticed her running back and forth all over the stage. She did a fantastic job. The event was stupendous. And through that, I actually found out she works also as a doula. So without further ado, here's Icha, and I'll let her talk a little bit about herself.
Hello, thank you for having me. Well, I am Cuban, cultured, right in Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl from the East Coast. I'm internationally Black. I'm a mother of 3, Montana and Sincere, and I'm an avid community worker. Anything that has to do with community work, I'm in it.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the community work that you've done?
Well, I volunteered for the Riverside Pride as a talent manager. I also work with senior citizens and keeping them fit. Trade, I'm a recruiter. That's the corporate world that I'm trying to leave. I'm also a doula, a birth worker, but there's more to doula. It's just being a supportive individual in lives that mostly need it.
So tell me a little bit about what inspired you to get into the work of doula. I feel like that's not something that you just look at the list of careers that you're like, that's the one I want to do.
Right. In all honesty, really pushed me. I mean, as birth workers, doulas, we have that natural knack to just care, support, just be that beacon of light, parents. But once that Roe versus Wade verdict came in, I said, I have to go in there because it's not just a birthing parent, it's also those who have wounds, who are dealing with trauma and just need care. So I tell myself, like, this is it. This is the time. Jump in and do it. Get certified. So that's what I did.
That's amazing work that you're doing. And especially with Roe versus Wade, that shifted the nation. It was a whole, I personally, I usually don't talk about politics here, but I think it was a whole 10 steps back. And women are just as equal as men, and if not more. I've seen women do 10 times better things than any men that I know in my life. I think that everybody deserves a right to their own body, to whatever they want to do, especially when it comes to birthing a new life into the world.
At the fire alarm in me, but then also knowing how the mortality rate is when it comes to Black birthing parents. Also, the lack of inclusivity when it comes to those who have wounds but don't identify as woman or anything gearing towards anything that has to do with womanhood. So it's like, do it, get to it, and I'm here and I'm happy.
I know that there's different types of doulas. Like I know during the event they talked about, birthing doulas, and then like if somebody passes away, then you get assigned a doula there. So
Right.
from the day that somebody says, you know what, I want a doula, and they start working with one, how does that process work?
There's a full spectrum, right? There's full spectrum doulas. There's ones who decide to just be on board from the very beginning to the end. There's also the ones who deal with just if there's a passing. And I personally have decided to care for those who are dealing with abortions, for those who just lack support when it comes to the LGBTQ community. Initial is, getting to know the individual, what are their needs. Also giving information to the families to see where they lack information and how we can actually unite as a all. Support, language, learning, education, and ensure that the healthcare community is also on board with their needs. It's something that's actually hurting a lot of us, and a lot of folks are just not realizing it. Birthing is not just something physical, it's also emotional, it's also spiritual, it's also mental. So taking that into accountability is something that as birth workers really take into play and just emphasize and make sure that it's, hey, this is necessary, let's get to it.
I completely agree. Me being part of the LGBT community, I never thought how different that may be, especially in like hospitals and whatnot. They may not treat women to women relationships the same. They may not treat a transgendered coupled or non-binary coupled or whatever it may be. That's different language.
Right.
And you don't know how they identify, how they want to portray, or they don't really align with their biological sex. And that gets a little bit more complex. So how do you stay, like what verbiage or how can you help a professional as yourself with another medical professional in that process?
Well, yeah, inclusive language. We are not necessarily there at the appointments. It's definitely optional, but it's something we do have conversations with the healthcare workers. We definitely also try to educate the birthing parent with what to say and how to say it. And there's even there's folks who are creating like these templates, like these cards where you can place your information on there, and then it's be very visible for the health worker to see and just have that in mind. Definitely conversation, communication from the very start is very imperative, and it's something that we do emphasize on when need be.
That's beautiful. And I would have never thought of holding like a card, and had everything kind of right there for them. I think that's so convenient.
Yeah, pronouns and stuff. Because you're there and you're pushing and you're in pain and things just happen so quickly. It's like, hey, listen. And they usually have a board too in the rooms where letting us know the name of the doctor, or they're keeping themselves informed as to what the round time. So just adding that on there. Hey, listen, these are my pronouns. This is what I need. This is this, and just follow by the guidelines.
What would you say your favorite part of the job is?
Just being a beacon of light, being that resource, being supportive as a whole. And I would like to say the United States, it's just not enough support for birthing parents, period. It's something that is very much needed and yet is not really spoken about. I found myself many times in situations where I wish, like, oh my God, I wish I had a support system in there because I lived in another country and we're not too close by. Or because when the pandemic occurred, it's just so many different reasons. So being able to be that person that I needed in my most dire time is definitely the it for me.
You said you have 3 children, correct?
I do.
So going through those 3 births that you gave, like what would you say is one big advice that you would give somebody in the process of that?
Learn yourself, period. Just learn yourself, stay in tuned, and try to marry ease, because at the end of the day, ease is going to take you to worlds that you didn't even know existed. Yeah, just ease for sure. No, we tend to get frantic when our bodies are just not doing what they usually do. It just causes more issues. And that's for all, right? For anything. Just being at ease and just learning self. It's a spiritual, most illuminating experience that I believe we can all have.
I think that's great advice. Especially your world gets turned upside down. Like you said, you can no longer move the same way you used to move. You can't eat the same foods. It's a big change. Like I can't eat this, I can't eat that. She has her big belly showing. She says that she's felt kicking already. So she's like super excited.
Excited for you all.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the work that you're doing is very amazing and very needed. Like I honestly didn't I knew of it when I was younger, but I didn't really know the extent of what y'all did. And hearing a little bit more about it, I think is truly amazing. Like you said, I didn't know the birthing rates of like African American individuals were so low in the United States. You think, oh, everybody has babies, equal access, but even to that level, it's not.
Right. There's a lot, like the death rates is super high. Research has shown that with the support of birth workers as doulas, there's more parents who are breastfeeding.
Mhm.
There's more parents who are not having to endure the cesarean. So there's just so much that goes on and so many things that do change and just come back to normalcy once you have, that great support. So doulas are definitely, it's like I believe that we are like the ancestors. You know how they say the ancestors walk with us? Well, here we are in the flesh walking with us,
That's
Yeah.
that's a great image.
Yeah.
And I think having somebody to kind of hold your hand throughout the whole process definitely gets you through it because it's a scary time. Having somebody like you being there, it gives you a sense of like ease. You're like, okay, I have someone to fall back to in case of like if I mess up or if I don't know what to do, I can ask because the medical system only does so much for you.
It does. They're so limited, unfortunately, but it is what it is. Definitely out here doing a lot of great things, and hopefully, a lot more folks get information about it and just would want to venture into this fantastic world of partnership and support systems.
So we talked a lot about, I think, very strong unicorn qualities that makes you very special. And I want to switch gears a little bit. The month of October, I introduced the concept of the masked unicorn.
Yeah.
So this is an individual that portrays themselves as a unicorn, but in reality, they're not. They're you, in your opinion, what would be an example of a masked unicorn?
Well, to stay within this topic, I would say, I'm not going to generalize, but I would
Mm-hmm.
say healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, they are privy of the resources, information that exists for birthing folks, yet they are just, whether it's they're overworked, overwhelmed, whatever it is, or they just prefer to just do one thing one way. They
Mm-hmm.
just eliminate the options that there is to assist this person in their path versus what they want them to do. I would say healthcare workers. A lot of parents don't know that when you go to the hospitals, there's a lot of tools that they can arrange on the bed so you cannot just lay on your back. Which is the reason why there's more C-sections than ever, because you have the parent on their backs when knowing that if you tilt them forward, the baby will even fall into position and do what they have to do. But yeah, doctors and nurses. Not all, not generalizing.
No, but I do agree that some people just want to do it the easier way versus the way that the parent wants. Or I've seen it in real life and also like in the TV shows, like Grey's Anatomy and whatnot, where a surgeon or somebody who's going through that process are like, you know what? I don't want to go through that difficulty. I don't want to, it's an inconvenience for me. And I
Right.
think that's very selfish.
Yeah.
It's like you're taking away like if somebody, I know so many women want to have vaginal births and they want to go that route, but then they get that taken away because, oh, sorry, there's a complication. And it's not necessarily like the kid's upside down or the cord is like wrapped around their neck or anything. It's just they're not coming out soon. We need to like do this. And
Exactly.
I think it's very sad, or the moms that don't want to have any type of chemicals pumped into them and they want to do it really naturally. Like, it's going to be painful, but if that's their wishes, then that's what they want to do.
Exactly. Yeah, and those C-sections, like the doctors know that you had one C-section, they're gonna push you and
Mm-hmm.
try to influence you to have it again. Why? Why can't we just not be natural and do what we have to do the normal way? But yeah, so yeah, doctors it is.
What do you think makes you a unicorn?
Ability to just uplift. I don't only focus on physical, I focus on your mind, I focus on your spirit, I just focus on you as an energy. Anything that I can do to uplift it all is definitely something that I'm great at it, actually. I'm really good at it.
I saw that in the event. You were like high-fiving people, you were getting people pumped up. I saw some people that were stressed and you're like, just breathe. We got this. We got this.
Let's exist. Yeah.
I think that's very needed because especially with all of the stress and all, there's so many reasons why we shouldn't be happy in the world right now. There, like we can get so obsessed in the negative that I think we need people like you that shine the light, like you said earlier, that remind us there's also good here. It's just your perspective and how you want to look at things. Yes, we can obsess over the negative, but we can also obsess over the positive and try to cherish the good moments that we have in our life.
Right. I totally agree.
In lieu of spooky season, what do you think is the scariest life lesson that you had to learn?
Oh, I might have to dig a little deep. Got sick twice with COVID.
Oh, wow.
Which definitely altered my life. To this day, I'm still in recovery mode. But having to deal with being severely ill and not having a support system. And having 3 kids to care for. So that was the most scariest, most terrifying moments that I can definitely say I experienced in my whole entire life. Yeah.
That's so difficult because like a job of a mother is you can't turn it off. You can't be like, hey, kids, I'm gonna go on PTO really quick. Well, how did you go through all that?
After, the COVID just released me from its shackles, I came to terms that this is my new norm. Radical acceptance. I definitely learned that the way that I've been instructing my children is the way, unfortunately, a lot of our parents had to grow up in survival mode. And we tend to teach our children surviving mode skill sets. If it wasn't for those, I don't know how my children would have survived on their own. That's alleviated a little bit of the instructions that people seem to think it was a little bit militant, but I'm like, it's necessary in today's day and age. So yeah, just radical acceptance. Life will throw its bricks at you and you just have to adapt, learn, and stay in the light, because it can definitely keep you in the dark, and therapy helps.
Oh yeah, definitely. 1000%.
Therapy helps. Everybody should be in therapy.
Yes, I agree. I think if everybody was in therapy, we would live in such a better world.
With the right therapist.
Yes, exactly. That's a really key component right there. I've gone through therapy with bad therapists and it does you worse than good.
Actually, yes, it does. I've been there too. So yeah, good therapy.
And I think what you said is very powerful because I think in a sense it shows what good of a parent you are, because then if your children are able to survive without you, even for like a couple days, that shows the good parenting skills and the good parenting techniques that you've taught them. So they've been able to absorb from you, because that's a rare thing. Not everybody can just be like, okay, mom's sick. What are we going to do?
Right.
And actually do it. I think some of them will be like, I don't know what to do. Like I have certain cousins, like my parents taught me how to cook since I was young. They taught me how to, like my dad was a carpenter, so I had to learn how to fix things around the house on my own since I was 5. So I knew how to, like when my mom had my sister, she actually was a preemie. So she was born like at 6 months and she was in the hospital for like about a month and a half. And my dad didn't know how to cook. So at age like 7, I was cooking for my dad because my dad was like, he was old, fashioned, and said, a man doesn't go in the kitchen. The man doesn't do this and that. But when it came down to it, he's like, oh, I don't even know how to boil water. And I was there. I was like, okay. So I was putting on my little apron and started cooking for him. So he's like, oh, well, if you know how to do this, then yeah, cook us whatever you need to cook. And I was over here calling my grandma. I was like, how do I make rice? How do I do this? And back then we didn't have Google and all of this stuff. So I had to like do that. I think I was watching the cooking channel. So I was like, okay, whatever's on there is what I'm going to cook right now. And then we were cooking, but not everybody can do that. And I think that you should applaud yourself and give yourself a pat in the back because you're able to, do that. And it's hard because you're like, I'm the parent they should not be taking care of me, but you're also taking turns.
Right.
Eventually we're gonna get there. They're gonna get older, they're gonna become adults, and it's a community that you're building. You're taking care of each other.
Exactly. Yeah, I teach my children. I mean, at home, we're partners at the end of the day.
Yes.
Forget the fact that I'm mom. I am not superior to you. There's no
Mm-hmm.
none of that exists here. We are all equals, and this is a partnership. And how are we going to cohabit? What are we going to do together? And
Mm-hmm.
what's going to blossom out of this unity? So yeah, I'm really big on that, and they definitely showed out. And I'm very grateful to have these kids. Yeah, and tradition is very big for me too. So, as I stated earlier, I'm Afro-Cuban, so all that Afro-Cubanness has been kicked over. So these kids are they doing it do.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
I think having culture is super, super important, and then continuing the traditions. You don't want it to die with you. You want it to continue going, and hopefully have them love it as much as you do, so that they can continue it with the new generation as well.
right. I love tradition and culture. I'm in love with it all. All cultures too. Very big on it.
Yes, and I think it's just having respect for it. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean that it's inherently bad. It's
Right.
just understanding it and respecting it. And we all have something important in our lives, whether it be a certain culture or a norm. And just, I think the more you understand it, the more you can honor it and respect it.
And understand that there's just so many connections to they're connected to each other.
Mm-hmm.
At dance across the board, all cultures, there's a connection in every day. Like it's yeah, so
Yeah.
understanding connectivity is also very, very vital.
And there's always similarities in everything. Like at the end of the day, we're human. So we get inspired by others, and we got by other cultures, and then we start creating things. And as long as you're honoring it the right way and not inappropriately using it,
Right.
doesn't like
Culture and
there's
appropriation.
yes, culture and appropriation. As long as you're not doing that, I think that you should be clear. But as long as you're going it with like, let's really respect it and understand where this is coming from.
Right. And give it its credit, right?
Exactly.
Credits.
Exactly. You don't even understand how frustrated I am nowadays when I hear all of this, even especially with the food relabeling that they're doing. In the Hispanic culture right now, like I heard he was drinking horchata water and they called it muddy water because it looks dirty.
You're
And
kidding.
and then a person opened a restaurant and started calling it muddy water.
Oh
And
wow. In
I
the
was,
United States, huh?
yeah, in the United States. I think it was even in California. I was so upset. I was like,
I would be too. I,
do not buy that water.
yeah. The more we age in this country, the more backwards we definitely go.
Hmm.
It's bizarre how we're working backwards here in this country, but let's hope that us who are very dedicated in change and just growth can reverse all of that.
Yes, that's why we need unicorns to really pull us forward and lead us the way, because I think that we are leading the wrong people sometimes.
Yeah,
We're following the wrong people, I should
yeah,
say. And we need to start listening to the right people. And just because it sounds hard doesn't mean that it's not right.
right.
Who is one person in your life that inspired you, that inspires you every day? Who's the unicorn in you in your life?
Oh, one person, huh?
I mean, it could be several.
I would say my mom.
Hmm.
I know that's the usual answer, but my mom was brought to this country forcefully.
Oh,
Uh-huh. Placed in a concentration camp in Arkansas
oh my gosh.
while Bill Clinton was governor. And
Mm.
having to endure the racism, the attacks, the deprivation of things just because she was a immigrant and how she has persevered from it all is just so amazing. She is the most freest liberal person that I know.
Wow.
74 years old and she still gets her nails done, makeup did, her hair gets dressed, and she's ready to party. And the world seems like it's going in shambles, and she's there still festive and ready to live.
That's amazing.
She too dealt with a lot of situations where she had more support. She probably would have had better experiences having children. But yeah, she smiles and she's such a happy person. Everybody loves her. Everybody loves her. And every day she makes sure that she cooks a big pot of rice, a big pot of beans, big pot of tosai, whether it's pernil or if it's chuletas,
Oh my gosh, that sounds so
plantain,
good.
yuca, like whatever it is, she has. So for anyone who's coming over, they have plenty to eat and take home.
That's amazing. That sounds like that's the place to go.
Sure is. Yeah, she's fantastic. I love mom.
Oh, everything that she went through, and she still has that like energy and that, and
Mhm.
like, because that could have either that kind of gone south real quick. She could have like taken it, and say, ah, this sucks, this happened to me, but she persevered and she's shining her light with everybody, and that's amazing. I think I'm inspired just by hearing that.
A lot of folks in that time did go the opposite way. Like they were either killed or they were doing killings. A lot
Mhm.
of them, to this day, I think are still imprisoned. But yeah, she definitely took a different detour and said, "Hey, I'm gonna live," and she did. We've danced with Celia Cruz.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, they got so within 2 years after all of that,
Hmm.
my parents were able to buy a bar in Spanish Harlem.
Oh wow.
And then for every festivity, any big festivities that they had, they were hiring big names like Oscar de Leon,
Oh my goodness.
Celia Cruz. Like, yeah. So when I tell you that they was not letting any of this put them down, they didn't.
That's amazing. What
Yeah.
an honor. I love Celia Cruz.
Oh, she was fun. I danced with. She was fun and very like kid oriented. Like, yeah, she wanted all the kids and let's dance and let's, yeah. I'm gonna see if I find a recording and post it somewhere. So
You should. That is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And if you can give one piece of advice, what would you want them to leave with?
Of everything that I've ever learned in my entire life, life has become extremely livable because I decided to marry ease. I married ease. Living with ease will allow you to live in mosaic gardens. It will be beautifully filled with, color and opulence. So why not? So find that ease, learn it, embrace it, marry it, and even in time of conflict, just remember that ease is the remedy.
That's a great advice. I think it sounds easy, but it's not. It's we get tempted by like all the other negative emotions that I think just reminding yourself, okay, I need to be at ease. Everything's gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this. But I think if you practice it long enough, like you're a living example that it can be done. Your mom is a living example that it can be done. So it's not impossible.
Right. Just sitting still, just letting things be, hey, this is what's going to happen and this is it and it's okay. Just being okay with what's to come, if there's no solutions to it. Radical acceptance is definitely something to be learned.
Yeah, if our listeners would want to follow you and or either would like to ask you any questions, where can they find you online?
So I created a page on Instagram called Nine Birth Work, the number nine birth work under construction, but that's where I'll be, and I'll be definitely adding more places to find information about me, what I do, and other folks who are also in the area who are definitely also doing big things.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. And I will be putting a link on the bio. So if you just click her name, it would go straight to her Instagram account. Well, thank you so much for coming in and having me the honor of interviewing you. I really appreciate it. Is there any last closing statements before we close?
No, just I hope everyone exists and continues to exist. Life is great.
Thanks. And I hope everybody has a great day. And thank you for joining another episode. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks again for listening to Finding the Unicorn in You. I would like to ask you to do 3 things for me. If you have enjoyed this episode or if you are enjoying listening to this podcast, hit the subscribe button and share it with a friend. I have a lot of great guests and content that are coming up in the future, and I don't want you to miss a thing. 2, if you have any comments, suggestions, or feedback that you feel would make this podcast better or more engaging, or if you would like to be interviewed for a future episode, feel free to shoot me an email at raygozaconsulting@gmail.com. Lastly, if you like this podcast and would like to support it, we are accepting any donations to help sustain future episodes. There is a link in the description of this episode. Feel free to click it and to donate anything from a cent to your heart's content. All donations are truly appreciated. Thank you again, and see you next week for for next week's show.